I was just live and I marked it for children. So, um, but it looks like the sound got cut out. So, um, anyways, I was just saying that there's so many leaves on the ground. Um, and it's kind of hard to say where to begin. So, I'm in here with my underscore factor. Um, and I got like a bunch of them left. Anyways, a few days to get after it. And geez, I did say something preaching at the end of the video. I'll have to go look. Leave it in the comments or something. But yeah, feeling a little put on by how much I feel inclined to do versus how much I'm encouraged to. And I don't know. I mean, I was lent a book recently, but it's sort of violent. Um and I just find it difficult to read. But I don't know, like, is this a children's book? I probably don't need to leave my food in the microwave this long. But I just closed the curtain in here. And what else? Well, I I brought my punching bag in like off of the area here. Um so now it's right here cuz I don't um look at my big tree. This little green thing here. And then this one here. It's hard to see, I know. But from the street, actually, that little twig of a thing right there, that looks like a magnolia, but I'm trying to feed the squirrels and lizards blueberries today, but they're not really taking to it. Um, they never do. I try though. All right. A lot of stuff behind me. Yay. All right. I'm on chapter 16. And it says, though the selection would be more varied later in the summer, food was plentiful if one knew where to look. Isa looked up when an old man past 30 hobbled up to her after they were on their way again. He carried neither burden nor weapon, only a long staff to help him walk. His right leg was crippled and smaller than the left, yet he managed to move with surprising agility. His right shoulder and upper arm were atrophied, and the shriveled arm had been amputated below the elbow. The powerful shoulder and arm and muscular leg of his fully developed left side made him appear lopsided. His huge cranium was even larger than those of the rest of the clan, and the difficulty of his birth had caused the defect that crippled him for life. He was also a sibling of Isa and Brune, firstborn, and would have been leader but for his affliction. He wore a leather wrap cut in the masculine style and carried his warm outer fur, which was also used as a sleeping fur, on his back, as the older men did. But he had several pouches hanging from his waist, thong, and cloak, similar to the kind the women used, which held a large, bulging object to his back. The left side of his face was hideously scarred, and his left eye was missing, but his good right eye sparkled with intelligence and something more. For all his hobbling, he moved with a grace that came from great wisdom and sureness of his place within the clan. He was Mog-Ur, the most powerful magician, most awesome and revered holy man of all the clans. He was convinced that his wasted body was given to him so that he could take his place as intermediary with the spirit world rather than at the head of his clan. In many ways, he had more power than any leader, and he knew it. Only close relatives remembered his birth name and called him by it. Kreb, Isa said in greeting and acknowledged his appearance with a motion that meant she was pleased he had joined her. Isa, he questioned with a gesture toward the child she carried. The woman opened her cloak, and Kreb looked closely at the small, flushed face. His eye traveled down to the swollen leg and separating wound, then back to the medicine woman and read meaning from her eyes. The girl moaned, and Krebs' expression softened. He nodded his approval. Good, he said. The word was gruff, guttural. Then he made a sign that meant enough have died. Krebs stayed beside Isa. He didn't have to conform to the understood rules that defined each person's position and status. He could walk with anyone, including the leader if he chose. Mog-Ur was above and aside from the strict hierarchy of the clan. Brune led them well beyond the spoor of cave lions before he stopped and studied the landscape. Across the river, as far as he could see, the prairie stretched out in low, rolling hills into a flat green expanse in the distance. His view was unobstructed. The few stunted trees, distorted by the constant wind into characters of arrested motion, merely put the open country in perspective and emphasized the emptiness. Near the horizon, a cloud of dust betrayed the presence of a large herd of hard hoofed animals, and Brun sorely wished he could signal his hunters and take out after them. Behind him, only the tops of tall conifers could be seen beyond the smaller deciduous trees of the forest already dwarfed by the vastness of the steppes. On his side of the river, the prairie ended abruptly, cut off by the cliff, now some distance away and angling ever farther from the stream ahead. The rock face of the steep wall merged into the foothills of majestic glacier topped mountains. Looming near their icy peaks, vibrant with vivid pinks, magentas, violets, and purples, reflecting the setting sun. Gigantic, sparkling jewels crowning the sovereign summits. Even the practical leader was moved by the pageant. He turned away from the river and led his clan toward the cliff, which held out the possibility of caves. They needed a shelter, but almost more important, their protective totem spirits needed a home if they hadn't already deserted the clan. They were angry. The earthquake proved that angry enough to cause the death of six of the clan and destroy their home. If a permanent place for the totemic spirits was not found, they would leave the clan to the mercy of evil ones that caused illness and chased game away. No one knew why the spirits were angry, not even Mog-Ur, though he conducted nightly rituals to appease their wrath and help relieve the clan's anxiety. They were all worried, but none more than Brune. The clan was his responsibility, and he felt the strain. Spirits, those unseen forces with unfathomable desires, baffled him. He was more comfortable in the physical world of hunting and leading his clan. None of the caves he had examined so far were suitable. They all lacked some condition that was essential, and he was getting desperate. Precious, warm days when they should have been storing food for the next winter were being wasted in the search for a new home. Soon he might be forced to shelter his clan in a less than adequate cave and continue the search next year. That would be unsettling physically and emotionally, and Brun fervently hoped it would not be necessary. They walked along the base of the cliff as the shadows deepened. When they reached a narrow waterfall bouncing down the rock wall, its spray a shimmering rainbow in the long rays of the sun. Bruin called a halt. Wearily, the women set down their burdens and fanned out along the pool at the bottom and its narrow outlet to find wood. Isa spread out her fur wrap and put the child on it, then hurried to help the other women. She was worried about the girl. Her breathing was shallow and she hadn't roused. Even her moans came less frequently. Isa had been thinking about how to help the child, considering the dried herbs she carried in her otterskin pouch. And while she gathered wood, she looked over the plants growing in the vicinity. To her, whether it was familiar or not, everything had some value. Medicinal or nutritional, but there was little she couldn't identify. When she saw long stalks of iris ready to bloom on the marshy bank of the little creek, it settled one question and she dug up its roots. The three lobed hop leaves twining around one of the trees gave her another idea, but she decided to use the powdered dry hops she had with her, since the cone like fruit would not mature until later. She peeled smooth grayish bark from an alder shrub growing near the pool and sniffed it. It was strongly aromatic, and she nodded to herself as she put it in a fold of her wrap. Before she hurried back, she picked several handfuls of young clover leaves. When the wood was gathered in the fireplace set, Grod, the man who walked in front with Brune, uncovered a glowing coal wrapped in moss and stuffed it into the hollow end of an oryx horn. They could make fire, but while traveling through unknown territory, it was easier to take a coal from one campfire and keep it alive to start the next one than to try to start a new fire each evening with possibly inadequate materials. Grodd had nurtured the burning ember anxiously while they traveled. The hot coal from the fire of the night before had been started by a hot coal from the previous evening's fire and could be traced back to the fire they had rekindled on the remains of the fireplace at the mouth of the old cave. For the rights to make a new cave acceptable for residents, they needed to start the fire from a coal they could trace back to their old home. Maintenance of the fire could only be entrusted to a male of high status. If the coal died out, it would be a sure sign that their protective spirits had deserted them, and Grodd would be demoted from second in command to the lowest ranked male position in the clan, a humiliation he did not care to suffer. His was a great honor and a heavy responsibility. While Grodd carefully placed the bit of burning charcoal on a bed of dry tinder and blew it into flame, the women turned to other tasks. With techniques passed down for generations, they quickly skinned the game. A few moments after the fire was blazing well, meat skewered with sharp green sticks set over forked branches was roasting. The high heat seared it to hold in juices, and when the fire died down to coals, little was lost to the licking flame. With the same sharp stone knives they used to skin and cut the meat, the women scraped and sliced roots and tubers. Tightly woven waterproof baskets and wooden bowls were filled with water, and then hot stones were added. When cooled, the stones were put back in the fire, and new ones were put in the water until it boiled and the vegetables cooked. Fat grubs were toasted crisp, and small lizards roasted whole until their tough skins blackened and cracked, exposing tasty bits of well cooked flesh. Isa made her own preparations while helping with the meal. In a wooden bowl that she had chipped out of a section of log many years before she started water boiling, she washed the iris roots, chewed them to a pulp, and spit them into the boiling water. In another bowl, the cup shaped piece from the lower jaw of a large deer, she crushed clover leaves, measured out a quantity of powdered hops into her hand, tore the alder bark into shreds, and poured boiling water over it. Then she ground hard, dry meat from their preserved emergency ration into a coarse meal between two stones and mixed the concentrated protein with water from cooking vegetables in a third bowl. The woman who had walked behind Isa cast an occasional glance her way, hoping Isa would volunteer some comment. All the women and the men, though they tried not to show it, were bursting with curiosity. They had seen Isa pick the girl up, and everyone had found a reason to walk near Isa's fur after they made camp. Speculation ran high about how the child happened to be there, where the rest of her people were, and mostly why Brune had allowed Isa to take a girl along who was obviously born to the others. Ibra knew better than anyone the strain Brune was feeling. She was the one who tried to massage the tension out of his neck and shoulders, and she was the one who bore the brunt of his nervous temper, so rare in the man who was her mate. Brune was known for his stoic self control, and she knew he regretted his outburst, though he would not compound his transgression by admitting it. But even Ibra wondered why he had allowed the child to come with them, especially when any deviation from normal behavior might increase the anger of the spirits. As curious as she was, Ibra asked no questions of Isa, and none of the other women had enough status to consider it. No one disturbed a medicine woman when she was obviously working her magic, and Isa was in no mood for idle gossip. Her concentration was directed at the child who needed her help. Kreb was interested in the girl too, but Isa welcomed his presence. She watched with silent gratitude while the magician shuffled over to the unconscious child, looked at her thoughtfully for a while, then leaned his staff against a large boulder and made flowing one handed motions over her. A request to benevolent spirits to assist in her recovery. Illness and accidents were mysterious manifestations of the war of the spirits, fought on the battleground of the body. Isa's magic came from protective spirits who acted through her, but no cure was complete without the holy man. A medicine woman was only an agent of the spirits. A magician interceded directly with them. Isa didn't know why she felt such concern for a child so different from the clan, but she wanted her to live. When Mauger was through, Isa lifted the girl in her arms and carried her to the small pool at the foot of the waterfall. She submerged all but her head and washed away dirt and cake mud from her thin little body. The cool water revived the youngster, but she was delirious. She tossed the rides, calling out and mumbling sounds like none the woman had ever heard before. Isa held the girl close as she walked back with her, making soothing murmurs that sounded like soft growls.